Okay, so today is about Act 5 of Othello, and hopefully you had a chance to look at the study guide for Act 5. Act 5, of course, is the concluding act. So we have the wrap up of most of the storylines and especially all of the plans that Iago has been making. I do think that I forget if there's, I don't remember if there's a question on the study guide about this or not, but I also feel like there's some things that are not wrapped up at the end of Othello. For example, what is going to happen to Iago? He for his part in all of the disaster that happens at the end. I mean, he's responsible for all of it, so it's kind of like not satisfactory to us, or maybe it's satisfactory to you, but it's not satisfactory to me that he ends up getting away with it, and he's going to end up because he kills Amelia, so she's the one who puts everything together and figures out what Othello had been trying to do all along, and so she can't tell anybody, and so we're kind of left with a feeling at the end of the play that aspect isn't really wrapped up. I think human nature would want us to see him, Iago, punished in some way. Instead, he gets everything that he wants, and he's not punished for it. And so I think it's not an easy thing to say, what the theme is. You can't just easily say that the lesson in Othello is don't act on your jealousy, because he doesn't, when he does, Iago, he doesn't have any after effects. So it's almost like saying, if he isn't punished, it's almost like saying, hey, you know what? You can get away with your jealousy and ruining people and causing murders and all of that stuff. So I don't know. I feel like that's unresolved at the end. What do y'all think? Any opinions on that? Well, the things that are resolved are the whole plot line to ruin Cassio and Othello. Those definitely come into play. Although Cassio isn't really ruined, he is hurt, but it looks at the end like he's going to be the new governor of Cyprus. So he isn't completely ruined, but Othello clearly is. And so all of Iago's plans actually work out for him, and he ends up completely ruining Othello and Desdemona in the process. She's the collateral damage, right? Even to the very end, she doesn't even really know what's happening. Her husband turns on her, and she doesn't know why. She defends herself, but he doesn't believe her, and then it's only after she's dead that he comes to realize what was perpetrated against him, and the fact that she was innocent. So that's the tragedy of the play, is that Iago was successful in creating a downfall for Othello. So it was a huge tragedy at the end. How many people do we have dead at the end? Let's see. Rodrigo dies, right? Desdemona dies. Emilia dies. Othello kills himself. And we find out from Gratiano, who has come from Venice, that Brabantio has died, Desdemona's father. I don't know if you caught that. It's like a little section where he's talking about how horrible it would have been if Brabantio had lived to see the situation with his daughter dead. And so, what is that, 5? I was counting. Yeah, 5. And that's the way it is in a lot of Shakespearean dramas. There's just sort of this whole cluster of murders or suicides or people dying or a sword fight or something, and there's just carnage usually in Act 5 of a tragedy. And, you know, this play is similar to Romeo and Juliet in some ways because we get notified that somebody's dead, just like we do in Romeo and Juliet. Y'all read Romeo and Juliet, right, when you were freshmen or in English 1? I'm assuming that you did. So some of it. Well, you know how it ends, right? They die. Okay. Yeah, they die. Paris gets killed. You know, there's just a whole host of deaths at the end. Same thing in Hamlet. There's a big sword fight and poisoning, and you know, people just dropping dead left and right, and that's true also in this play. So I think Othello is punished for something beyond probably what it's worth. He's punished because he overlooked Iago for promotion, and he ends up completely ruined, his wife dead at his hand, and then he commits suicide. And so almost in that case, the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Iago kind of goes overtime on punishing Othello for the offenses that he perceives from him. Let's look at the study guide, because I do want to play the remainder of the film for you. I don't think we didn't see, we watched through Act 2, so I'll play Acts 3, 4, and 5 for you today for your viewing pleasure. But here's the study guide for Act 5. I kind of want to know if there are any questions that you want me to spend some time talking about, or maybe some of the quotations that are listed here. Remember, this is just a guide to help you make sure that you are reading sufficiently and making sure that you know what's going on in the text at a certain depth. So if there's anything, is there anything from scene 1 that you want me to talk about? You can put the number in there if you want me to talk about that. Eight. What is the importance of Iago saying, "This is the fruit of whoring" to Emilia? So Iago is not the sweetest husband. He's evil pretty much through and through. And it's sort of like when Iago says this is the fruit of whoring, he's referring to two things. First, he's referring to the actual situation. This is what happens when you are unfaithful and messing around. And he says that to Emilia because either he suspects her of it or he's warning her against any kind of action. I mean, Iago is the retaliatory type. So if she were to stray, she doesn't, but if she were, then, not during the play anyway, then he would probably kill her. So it's almost a threat. Because later he does kill her. He does kill her in scene 2 to keep her quiet, because she decides, when she puts 2 and 2 together and figures out what Iago has been doing with the handkerchief and poisoning Othello's mind against Desdemona and all those things, she knows the truth because she's with Desdemona all the time. She knows that Desdemona and Cassio haven't had an opportunity to have an affair. So she's about to tell everybody there, and all the family members are there, and the, you know, sort of like the upper crust of Venice is there. Lodovico and Gratiano are there. And so she's about to spill the beans because she put everything together, and so he kills her. So I don't know. I feel like that's a statement against warning her on her behavior. Or, I mean, we don't have any evidence in the play for this, so I probably wouldn't be able to support it very strongly, but you know, maybe there was something in their past and he's just sort of like lashing out at her in that case. But it definitely goes to his character. It's a threat. He's threatening his own wife, and later on he will kill her. I mean, what kind of guy? Iago's just horrible through and through. Are there any others in scene 1 or scene 2? I numbered them so that they will, a lot goes down in scene 2, and when you read it, sort of the problem with Act 5 in this drama and other dramas is that there are multiple things, like you have to envision it on a stage. you're not reading it like it's a story. You have to envision it with action happening in person. And so the video will help a little bit with that in a minute when we watch it. But you know, a lot of the things that are happening, you're reading them in sequence, but they're happening kind of at the same time. So like, for example, in scene 1, when Rodrigo stabs Cassio and then Cassio stabs him back, and then there's calling and people are arriving, like you're seeing it in a sequence, but probably those are overlapped in real life if you were watching it on the stage. You know, this person wouldn't wait until somebody showed up to say help, you know, so they'd be happening at the same time. So a lot of these two scenes are that way. And so it'll go a lot faster when we watch the scenes because they'll be happening simultaneously. So there's a lot of questions here about just sorting out what happens in scene 2, because in scene 2, there's a lot of overlapping elements to that scene. Any quotes that you want me to discuss? Scene 1, question 12, okay. Scene 1, question 12. This is the night that either makes me or foredoes me quite. That's Iago, because he's been doing all these plans and all these machinations. Tonight's the night that either it's going to work or I'm going to be exposed and it's over. So it's sort of like the crux. It's the moment where it's either going to happen or it's not. All these plans. So he's just saying either it will make me, in other words, I'll be satisfied with my revenge, or foredoes me quite, puts me, you know, it will completely undo me. Because if instead of his plan working and Othello killing Desdemona, if Desdemona had been successful in convincing Othello that she was innocent, then sooner or later the tables would have turned and everybody would have realized what Iago was trying to do. And then he would be punished for that. So be his undoing. Also remember those, there are those concepts here that you should be kind of mentally tracking or making notes about. So some of those do show up on the midterm in the essay section, where you might be asked to create a theme on one of these concepts. So you might end up, you know, getting on the luck of the draw on the midterm, loyalty. And so the question would be something like, what lesson does Othello, the play, teach us about loyalty, and how is that demonstrated throughout the drama? So if you've already thought about those or made a little chart, or at least, you know, run your mind through them. Scene 2, question 28. What messages does the ending of the play send to the audience? Yeah, I was talking about that a little bit sooner. I mean, it would make more sense and probably be more satisfying to us if everybody turns to Iago and realizes what he's done and he's put in handcuffs or taken away or something. Like there's some punishment that's suggested. Instead, he just sort of runs away and we're left to think, okay, well, I guess he's free, and there's no inkling that any of the remaining live people on stage at the end are going to tie any of this back to him. Cassio can't. He doesn't know that Iago was working behind the scenes to create this mayhem. So the message at the end, you know, if you're looking on the surface level and sort of simplistically, you could say, oh, don't be jealous. Oh, you know, you shouldn't take people's word for things like Othello does. But I think that there's a deeper, more sinister or dark message in that Iago isn't punished. He's not punished for any of the horrible things that he does, and he does them happily, and he's choosing on purpose to ruin some people that are basically innocent. And it's not like he's just trying to get equal revenge for his anger for being overlooked for his position. It's like 50 times the punishment on Othello, or 100 or a million times, compared to the slight that he perceives on himself. I mean, he was overlooked for a position. Okay, that doesn't mean you might not get a position later. And what he does is so much overkill. and he's not punished. And so you have to kind of scratch your head and say, well, what was Shakespeare just trying to end the play, or was he trying to say something about justice? Was he trying to say something about how sometimes people get away with it and nobody ever knows? Uh, and that is an unsettling conclusion to the play. So the messages at the end could be sort of superficial or a little bit deeper about society and what we allow to happen to ourselves, what we believe, who we trust, and also what society does to people who break that trust and actively perpetrate evil on others.